Thank you, President Nunez, and thank you to everyone at Eastern for awarding me this honorary degree. I am very pleased and very proud to have it, not least because I happen to have another, even more cherished degree from Eastern, my bachelor's. I graduated from Eastern almost 15 years ago, and just thinking about that made me realize how quickly I am moving away from being young. The last time I visited Eastern, I was amazed at how beautiful the campus is. It felt as if they had waited until I graduated, and then boom, all the nice buildings came up, and everything became nicer. But despite the fact that Eastern looks wonderful now, it wasn't too bad when I was a student here. And most of all, what mattered was the education I was fortunate to receive, the small class sizes, the professors who all paid attention to the students, and who were all keen to see the students succeed. I will always be grateful to Eastern Connecticut State for giving me a worthwhile education. And now, here you are, class of 2015, about to graduate with your own worthwhile education. You are very fortunate. You're fortunate to have an education from Connecticut's public liberal arts university. You're fortunate to have benefited from a wonderful liberal arts core curriculum. And it's also really cool to have a degree from one of the country's most environmentally responsible colleges. Congratulations. I hope you're excited and happy. I was when I graduated. But in addition to being excited and happy, I had questions and doubts and worries. I kept asking myself, what's next? What am I going to do now? Graduation was a wonderful thing, but it also meant that I was now a real adult, a real grown-up. And that was a somewhat terrifying thought. Maybe some of you are worried, as I was, about what this means, about adulthood. And I don't mean adulthood in terms of only age, but also metaphorically, in terms of responsibility. And most of all, of course, about getting a job. Maybe you have a lot of debt to pay off. Maybe you're worried not just about getting a job, but about getting the kind of job you want. Well, you should be worried. Being worried means that you care, that it matters to you. But the questions you're asking yourself come from the idea that somehow you have to have all the answers and you have to have everything figured out. Actually, you don't. People who are asked to give commencement speeches are also supposed to have everything figured out. But I am very sad to inform you that I do not. I think of life in the same way as I think of my fiction writing. When I start a story, I never quite know exactly how it will end. The journey itself is the discovery. I start out as a leap of faith. I let the characters lead me. And sometimes it ends up being a good story, and sometimes I abandon it because it isn't a very good story. Above all, the journey is what matters to me. The past 10 days have been the most emotionally difficult of my life. My father is 83 years old. He's a retired professor, a lovely, kind, simple man who is full of grace. Last Saturday, he was kidnapped near his home in Nigeria. For a number of days, my family and I went through the kind of emotional pain that I have never known in my life. We were talking to threatening strangers on the phone, begging, negotiating for my father's safety, and we were not always sure whether my father was alive. He was released after we paid a ransom. He's well, he's in fairly good shape, And in his usual lovely way, he's very keen to reassure us that he's fine. Thank you. I am still not sleeping well. I still wake up many times at night in panic, worried that something else has gone wrong. I still cannot look at my father without fighting tears, without feeling profound relief and gratitude that he is safe, but also rage that he had to undergo such an indignity to his body and to his spirit. And the entire experience has made me rethink many things and has made me realize what truly matters and what doesn't, what I value and what I don't. And as you graduate today, I urge you to think about that a little bit more. Think about what really matters to you. Think about what you want to really matter to you. This is the time to hear grand pronouncements from family and friends, to be told to go out and change the world, to go out and do something big in the world. These are not bad things to be told, but I urge you to define for yourself what big means. Let the idea of big thing be yours and nobody else's. What you think of as a big thing in the world might be small to somebody else, but that somebody else does not matter. A friend once told me a story about a teacher she had in high school. The teacher's sole advice to this friend was, just swim in your own lane, which confused my friend because she was not a swimmer. So the teacher told her that when he was a student, he had been on a swimming team at Stanford. His stroke was very good, but he kept coming in second. And so his coach told him, your problem is you keep looking around to see how the other guys are doing. Keep your eyes on your own lane. Swim your fastest and you'll win. But as you define for yourself what it means to do something big in the world, I urge you to try also to learn how to criticize yourself. Self-preservation is a natural mechanism, and so self-criticism can seem unnatural and can be very difficult, but it is important. You must be willing to be wrong. You must be willing to say, I don't know. To admit to a lack of knowledge is, for me, a sign of immense strength rather than weakness. The ability for self-criticism is a product of a beautiful kind of honesty. It is an acknowledgement that there is no such thing as perfection. After my second novel, Half of the Yellow Sun, was published, and I was lucky that it became very successful, I decided to go back to graduate school. People asked me why, especially as my novel was one of the class texts used in graduate school. And my answer was that I went back to school because I woke up each morning realizing how little I knew and how much I wanted to know. Somewhere in the world, I know there is a person who writes better than I do, who thinks more clearly, who has better insights. Keeping this in mind ensures that while I celebrate my success and while I feel grateful and fortunate, I also believe that success is ultimately something we have to define for ourselves. We cannot let anybody else define success for us. But I must also add that I mean this within reason. I don't mean that if you get an F in an exam, then you decide that that's your definition of success. So as you graduate today, I urge you to always speak your truth. It is important, though, to remember that speaking your truth is different from being deliberately offensive. Because of my writing, I'm fortunate to have a public voice, and I speak out about things I care about the equality of men and women, about the injustices of race, about the rights of gay people to live their lives like any other citizens. but I never speak with the intention to provoke anybody. I speak because I think our time on earth is short, and each moment that we are not our truest selves, each moment that we pretend to be what we are not, each moment when we say what we do not mean because we imagine that is what somebody wants us to say, then we are wasting our time on earth. As you graduate today, I urge you to be humane, to be human, to be kind. Always recognize the human presence of other people. Always remember that other people are not merely a source of ideas or figures or reports, but are also emotional beings with dreams and hopes and fears. Before you pass judgment, try and understand. Before you form an opinion, listen and listen again. When I was growing up in Nigeria, I was expected, as every student who did well in school was, to become a doctor. Deep down, I knew that all I really cared about was words. I wanted to write and I wanted to read. But I did what I was supposed to do, and I went to medical school. But after 1 year of medical school, I fled. I realized I would be a very unhappy doctor. And I also did not want to be responsible for the inadvertent death of my patients. Leaving medical school was a very unusual decision, especially in Nigeria, where it is very difficult to get into medical school. Later, people told me that it had been very courageous of me to leave, but I did not feel courageous at all. It seems to me that courage is something we imagine we had only on looking back. What I felt then was not courage. It was a desire to make an effort. I knew I had two options. I could either stay and study something that was not right for me and be unhappy, or I could act. I could try and do something different. And so I decided to try. I did my research, I took the exams, and I got a scholarship to come to the US to go to college where I could study something else that was not medicine. Now, it might not have worked out. I might not have gotten that American scholarship. My writing might not have become successful. But the point is that I tried. We can't always bend the world into the shapes we want to, but we can try. We can make a concerted and real and true effort. And you, class of 2015, you are privileged that because of your education here at Eastern, you already have been given the tools that you will need to make an effort. And so I urge you, as you graduate, as you deal with your excitement and your doubts, always to make an effort. Just try. You never know. Congratulations again. I wish you all a life filled with meaning and with joy. Thank you.